Hi, my name is Bob Grant, and you're about to see how a 41-year-old single mom named Anna with 3 small children went from being divorced, single, alone, and hopeless to having men constantly pursuing her everywhere, including the elevator, until she chose the one special man who stood out from all the others. The one man who promised to always love her and finally convinced her to be his forever. I'm also going to show you why so many of the things you've been told that attract a man are wrong. Why being positive and upbeat all the time actually makes him ignore your needs. Why never getting angry with him will actually make him become bored with you. And why giving him everything he wants will only make him take you for granted. You may not know that most men don't realize the unconscious triggers within themselves that create a deep desire for a woman. In fact, they actually tell women exactly the opposite of what they need. So I'm going to tell you exactly what a man wants, even though most men don't realize this themselves. Most men tell women that they want them to be more laid back and easygoing and not to complain. Yet that's just what Anna did before she started working with me, and the man she loved still left her, even though she gave him exactly what he told her he wanted. And because of her experience and hundreds of other clients in my private practice, I decided to take all of my clinical training as a licensed professional and began doing research to find the hidden emotional key that made a man want to connect with a woman on a deep emotional level and stay committed to her, even if she wasn't the prettiest, thinnest, or anything that Cosmo magazine said you should be. I've been doing this for over 15 years now, and I've cracked the bonding code and shared it with thousands of women. I even found research that spoke to this when I discovered the editor of Psychology Today, T. George Harris, who said that while money, looks, and social status make a woman more appealing, none of those compare to this one quality, which I'll share with you in this special presentation. Alfred Adler, who worked with Sigmund Freud, also described this almost mystical quality nearly 100 years ago that enabled a woman to captivate a man, almost without even trying. And yet so few women have ever been told about its truly hypnotic effect on men, until now. What is so amazing is that this works for you even if you don't have the body of a Victoria's Secret lingerie model, even if you're 21 or 55, even if you're tall, short, curvy, pencil thin, or whatever trait you feel holds you back from experiencing the love and attention from a man that you've always wanted. So I need you to pay close attention to this entire video right now, because if you miss just 1 second of what I'm about to share with you, just one part, this bonding code might not work. This is the exact same formula that I shared with Anna on our first visit. Yes, the same Anna I mentioned at the beginning, who was 41, divorced, and had 3 kids and no self-confidence to date. Let me tell you about Anna. 10 years earlier, she sat at a fancy restaurant with beautiful music playing when Tyler got up out of his chair, bent down on one knee, and asked her to be his forever. Stunned and speechless, she started to cry with tears of joy as she said yes to his proposal. When they were married, she knew she'd picked the right man for her and wanted to make sure she was the wife he had always wanted. So she did what she thought a man would like. She almost always agreed to his sexual advances while being both positive and upbeat most of the time. In fact, Tyler often bragged to other couples that she was one of the most giving women he had ever known. All seemed well until one fateful morning. As she was making her morning coffee, Tyler came into the kitchen and sat down at the table and waited. At first she thought nothing of this until she turned around and saw him staring off into space. "Anything wrong?" she innocently asked. For a moment he didn't say anything until he took a deep breath and uttered the words that punched her in the stomach. "I'm sorry, but I think we should separate." At that moment she found it suddenly hard to breathe as she forced the words to come out. But why? "I'm sorry," he said, "but I just don't think I'm in love with you anymore." The words cut her like a knife as a sense of both fear and numbness engulfed her. Desperately she wanted to talk with him, yet he said he had to leave, that they would discuss it later, but later never came that day. Tyler never offered her a reason except to say that something was missing and he couldn't stay with her any longer. In the coming days her mind raced from thoughts of fear to anger and then back to fear as the questions kept racing through her mind. Was he having an affair? What had she done wrong that this was happening to her? If she could just understand, then she could fix it. But the understanding she wanted never came as she went from begging him to stay to accepting the cold reality that he would never return. After 3 months, she felt that she was going to drown in grief if she didn't talk with someone, so a friend referred her to me. After a few minutes sitting across from me, she paused, looked me in the eye, and asked, Bob, who's going to want a 41-year-old divorced woman with 3 small children? After losing the man who had promised to love her forever, I understood her doubts and fears. Fast forward 8 months, and you wouldn't recognize this same woman. One afternoon, she went to see her attorney and entered the elevator to his 14th floor. When she got in, she pushed the button for her floor and noticed a man who was busy talking to someone on his cell phone. As the elevator began its ascent, he stopped his call and glanced at her, then looked away. She felt a nervous twinge. Then not a moment later, she was shocked when he said, I'm sorry, but I don't normally do this. I don't know if I'll ever see you again, so I wanted to ask if I could call you sometime. As the elevator came to her floor, she just knew the look of complete shock was draped all over her face. But somehow she managed to say, thank you, but I'm afraid I've got to go. She tried to dismiss her experience as something random, until 2 weeks later at a friend's dinner party. She had reluctantly agreed to go and didn't feel especially social. Yet that evening, 2 men were captivated by her every word. The attention was almost overwhelming for her as each asked her when they could see her again. No longer was she broken and despondent, and in the coming weeks she had men calling her constantly and begging her to spend time with them. The doubts that had haunted her just a few months ago now seemed almost silly. So what happened that made this 41-year-old single mother of 3 go from being abandoned to suddenly sought after by over a dozen men? Everything began to change for her once she learned the secret, the hard way. What men tell you they want and what they actually want are often 2 entirely different things. As a woman, it is critical that you understand a man's emotional needs more than he does, or else he'll pull you into what I call the giving pit. This is the unconscious and destructive urge within a man that is only happy when you're doing something to please him. It is as dangerous as a vampire that drains the very life out of a helpless young woman. And here's the big trap. He will even say this is what he wants, but don't listen and don't give in. You must never fall into this pit. You know, where you give in to what he wants because you think it will make him happy, that it will keep him devoted to you, that it will make him love you. And here's what's tragic about this. As logical as that sounds, giving too much to a man doesn't make him love you. It will make him despise you, even though that's often exactly what a man tells you he wants. This is why I'm going to share with you something that is counterintuitive to everything even men tell you they want in a woman. Because if you let him keep pulling you down the path to the giving pit, you're actually increasing the chance that he might leave you. You see, the path is based on 3 common but deadly myths that I need to expose right now. Myth number 1, you must be accommodating so that he'll think you're easygoing and fun. But that doesn't work because it actually trains him to think you're willing to do whatever he wants. And what makes this so bad is that he'll just assume all you care about is his needs, his happiness with nothing left for you. Kind of like you're his mother, doting on him, with your sole purpose focused on making sure he's happy. Myth number 2, you've been told never to get angry with a man because it's such a turnoff. But the truth is that never getting angry with a man actually makes him get bored with you. The reason is this. Men live by this motto. If you can't handle me when I'm rude or disrespectful, then you're too weak for me to ever trust you when I'm scared. Myth number 3. And the worst thing you've been told is that the more you give to a man, the deeper he'll love you. I'm sorry to tell you, but doing that will only lead to my deepest fear for you, that he'll take you for granted by only calling you when he's in the mood, having his desire for you go hot and cold for no apparent reason, and expecting you to be positive and upbeat all the time. For years, I've had to help my clients destroy these myths because I saw how it pulled them into the giving pit. Yet there were a few women that had a special quality that kept them out of this deep pit. One woman who had this quality was Rosa, who came to see me because of a family issue, but in our conversation mentioned that she was so tired of all these men hitting on me. Now that's something I didn't hear that often, so I took notice of why men would hit on her. Was she beautiful? Well, yes, but certainly not striking. She didn't especially dress girly and wasn't overly flirtatious. In fact, she didn't even know how she did it and certainly didn't try and attract men. But she had what I call the campfire effect, that effortless quality to glow and charm a man without even trying, without having to resort to weird games or skin-tight clothes, without having to give in to a man's demands just to please him, without having to worry about saying the wrong thing. What she described is almost identical to a few rare and mysterious women throughout history that have used this campfire effect to produce an almost dreamlike trance over men. Cleopatra is considered to be almost mythical in her beauty, but when I researched her, I found something quite different. Her looks are never described as stunning or breathtaking like Helen of Troy. But what she possessed was an ability to charm men. She had a quality that was so powerful that men were willing to go to war for her if that's what she desired. A more modern example is the graceful Susan Levin. Perhaps you know her better as the wife of the famous actor Robert Downey Jr., who was thought to be untamable until he met her. His drug usage and womanizing is legendary, even by Hollywood standards. Yet after turbulent affairs with actresses Marissa Tomei, Jennifer Jason Leigh, and Sarah Jessica Parker, and countless others, everything came crashing down one fateful day. Out of his mind on cocaine, he had wandered into his neighbor's home and fell asleep in her 11-year-old son's empty bed, but not before he had undressed to his underpants. Shortly after this, as fate would have it, he would meet the woman that would change his life forever. To this day, he admits that all of his success would mean nothing without her by his side. This is the power of the campfire effect, and as I began sharing its secrets with my clients, I started hearing them say things like this.